Professor R. Balasubramaniam. Dr. Balasubramaniam is a development scholar, author, and activist known for his pioneering development work with rural and tribal people in Karnataka. He founded the Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement. His book, I the Citizen, is a compilation of narratives and reflections of a development activist. It was released in 2015 by the Prime Minister's office. He is also the chairman of Grassroots Research and Advocacy Movement, that is GRAM, at Vivekananda Institute, Mysore. In Jan 2014, he received the Vivekananda Award for Human Excellence from the Ramakrishna Mission. In May 2014, the Society of Indian Medical Anthropology awarded him with the Swasthya Seva Ratna Award for outstanding medical service to indigenous tribal communities. Thank you, sir, for coming here to our college. Especially coming out from Bangalore for us, guys.
Thank you, Ratanji. It's a pleasure being here for three reasons. One is to be with distinguished people like Ratanji and Vivek, and to be with young people. And also an opportunity to possibly build on what Ratanji said. I also had a challenge when I saw the title. When I saw Professor Swati's email, I did agree because I agreed to speak, especially with young people to listen. And the disagreement I had was the topic of idea of India. I think what time has come for us to tell the world about the ideas from India. And that is what I think I would like to talk about now. And there are plenty of ideas that we have. I'm a romantic, so a very unabashed romantic, so I have no problems with that. And I have an eternal romance with India. And for want of a better word, I'll use the word India because that gives us, especially young generations, it's very difficult for you to even construct the idea of Bharat in your minds. So it's so abstract. You will have to possibly live with the real Bharat to even understand the depth and width of what it's all about. So I won't get into that space. I'll just stick to the idea of India. First disclosure, I'm not from the IAS. In fact, I've been such a problem for the IAS that they wish I wasn't there. So, though I do teach at the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, I try to tell them the real India, which nobody wants to listen, especially the Indian bureaucracy, with its own Western mindsets, seems to understand India from a different perspective. They see it from the lens of outsiders. Now let's all look at India from the lens of insiders. There are textbooks, like we said, are lenses of outsiders. I would just take you down a journey and give you powerful reasons why all of you have to be romantics, not just me. All of us have to fall in love with this extraordinary country called India. And there's no better way to describe India than what Swami Vivekananda described. You can't get a better word. He just called it my Punya Bhumi, my Karma Bhumi. And these two words would capture every little idea that you can take out of India itself. It is so holy. Holiness is a very misinterpreted term. Don't go by the present debate of holiness. I don't want to get lost into it. It's got much more dignified meaning to it. And he said, if there's any country in this world, and he said the world, and remember, I think Vivekananda at that point of time had travelled quite a bit of the world to talk about it, all the authority and the credibility that he could generate. He said, there's any civilization in this world which could possibly stand up and show the world what gentleness was, what generosity was, what intellectualism was, what true knowledge was, what wisdom was, what spirituality was, then that is the country that India is. And the great man had the courage to say, when I left India, somebody asked him, an Englishman asked him, you have now travelled around the world, you must have fallen in love with everything outside India, so many things are there, so beautiful, so wonderfully different. How does it feel to go back to India? He didn't know he was touching a raw nerve of Swamiji. Except for brutally assaulting that English priest, Vivekananda told him, when I left India, everything about India was great, but now the very dust of India is holy to me, he said. And the first thing he did when he came back, it's symbolic. I think we Indians love symbols. But the problem is we get stuck with the symbols. So let's go a little deeper than the symbol and look at what is great about India. I want to just go back to a great historian's report. Though in passing, Shardaji mentioned a little bit about GDP. I teach development, and I teach it in some of the world's leading schools. I teach it a prescription of what India's view of development is, and I believe we screwed up this country for the last 65 years, messed it up totally. Hopefully we'll possibly not continue to mess it up. I'm still hoping we'll not mess it up. I'm not saying we've already started unmessing it, but I'm just hoping we'll not mess it further. There's 8 to 10 years ago when the whole world had collapsed, because only the whole world except India and maybe Chinese civilization to some extent interprets growth and development through very econometric terms. You can't tell a Westerner how do you measure a country and its progress except in terms of dollars, except in GDP and per capita terms. You just don't have any other scale to measure and describe a country. And most of you tomorrow, I'm sure, and in a business school, I teach in quite a few business schools, and I know what kind of measurements you have. I had a young student who came to me very disappointed sometime. I teach leadership in many business schools. And this young boy came to me and said, he was looking very sullen. And I asked him, what happened? You are one of my best students in my class. I gave you an A. What's wrong? And he said, you know what, Professor? My colleague who got a B plus gets 1.5 crore salary pay packet, and I only got 90 lakhs. So something must be wrong with me. Now, I know all of you, when you're graduating, and even your school possibly, I don't know about VES, would proudly put up on its brochure saying that 100% placement, minimum average salary 22 lakhs, 48 lakhs. So we have changed the very metric of what progress and success can be. Unfortunately, this metric is the most imitated metric that the world gave us, and that is not an idea that came from India. India's metrics was ever evolutionary, and I'll give you just historical evidences of this. And I'll first stick to what metric we all like, the money metric. And so the money market collapsed. The world was collapsing. The World Bank got jittery. Everybody was nervous. Because if America collapses, they thought the rest of the world will collapse. That's a myth Americans have about themselves. Everything they do is World Cup, everything they do is world premiere. You release a movie in America, they'll call it world premiere. I'm sure Vivek agrees with me. They don't know the world. That's a problem with them. Their world is poor little American continent. Now, when the whole economy was in a mess, the United Nations commissioned a historian, economic historian, to study, and they had a very simple mandate. They just wanted to study and say which country in the world has sustainably grown, and they can deconstruct that growth and understand why it grew. Possibly they could then work out a model on which every other country could imitate and grow. Very simple mandate. And this man, a British historian called Angus Madison, was commissioned, and his report was so powerful that never finds public space and mention. Because people are worried about the report now. And because the report said, it's a very simple report. He went back. After all, for us the benchmark is Christ died. It's very funny. Jokes apart, that the benchmark, we keep somebody's death and say from that year we measure millennium. And so 2000 years they went and measured. And the first century AD, guess which country, and that's only metric they know, so I don't blame the West, was the leading economy in this world with the measurements of the West. Come on, the way I ask the question, the answer is evident. Right? Yeah, 2nd century?
India.
3rd century?
India.
I can make you repeat this name 16 times because till 16th century, for 1600 continuous years, the only civilization in the world, and if you could call it a nation, I wouldn't like to limit it as a nation, but civilization in this world which had a leading GDP was India. 17th century, something went wrong, and China overtook us. 18th century, both the nations went wrong. We lost out. By the time we got a freedom, you should remember, we are really pathetic. And as of 15 days ago, World Bank has released a report, 1 in 3 poor people lives in this great country of ours. So if you go by this metric of GDP, 1/3 global poverty burden is in this country. And to me it's a shameful fact because that is not the idea of India that we had. There's something else that I would like to talk about it. 1600 years what went right. I run a course on change management, and I tell people change is not about change at all. Everybody wants to change India now. I don't believe in that at all. Change is not about change at all. Change is about understanding what to preserve. We need to understand what is the DNA that we need to hold on to. And it's a very modern world. We are not asking you to hold on to a DNA of wearing a dhoti and wearing a sari and discussing how was that. Sari should be worn, or like Vivekananda says, should you ring the bell for the Lord in the right hand or the left hand? We have a debate. This country gets so lost in debate. For 70 years there was a case in the Supreme Court where the mark for the elephant, should it be a U or a Y, was actually a case in the court. Because before the Britishers didn't deal with it. It went to court, and then post-independent India, the Supreme Court had to rule saying 3 days you put it like this, 3 days you put a white head. Odd even. That's an odd even formula that Supreme Court evolved. So we spent our time debating all that without realizing why the Nama was there in the first place. Right? That itself is forgotten. Why is it on an elephant after all? And this is on an elephant, not even on people. And this is the way our country progresses. But leaving all that apart, let's look at what happened in the 1600 years. What was the extraordinary wealth that this country had? Let's understand the DNA of India that worked for 1600 years, and those are the ideas that the world needs today. Because in those 1600 years, India never bothered about the GDP. The world bothered about it. Without even bothering about the GDP, we're number one in the world. Just imagine if we start bothering about it. What India really was bothered about was creating an extraordinary nation which is built on expanding human and social capital. That is the idea of India. There is no country in this world which has empirically and emphatically demonstrated that expanding human and social capital is the only way for the future. The rest of this country is obsessed with economic capital and its expansion. Unfortunately, some of the signals we get from Government of India now is the obsession continues. But I believe a true India, and the India that we need to grow, is growing this extraordinary DNA, the DNA of the human and social capital that a country can stand up and tell the rest of the world. That is the Jagat Guru Vivekananda dreamt. That is the Jagannatha he dreamt about, giving to the rest of the world. And what is this human capital? I look at human capital in 4 simple dimensions. In a very ordinary sense, the heart, body, mind and soul. Look at an extraordinary concept. Today, there is research coming out of Harvard Medical School, research coming out of Case Western University. I'm quoting these names not for anything else, because today's young crowd, if I give a Western name, it doesn't make sense. Because we all think science comes from the West. We always reference or a citation from Harvard. Now I have taught there, I know how things work. It doesn't work as linear as what we are all made to believe. I can tell you, real human capital expansion, the body, and today, there's a publication by the Harvard Medical School which says the best possible exercise that you can conceive for the human body, the way it's been designed, is yoga. If Harvard says it, the world gets up. If our Prime Minister announces International Yoga Day, tell me honestly in this crowd, how many of you do yoga? Isn't it a shame? The 7 hands going up. This is India for you. If this is the idea of India, that is a tragedy for India. The idea of India is every one of us get up and say, I do it. It's a $28 billion annual industry in the United States. Half the fellows, Mysore is considered the yoga capital. I come from there. You go every street of Mysore, every morning 5 o'clock you get up. If you want to see Americans walking around, or everybody in the world walking around with a mat in their hand with slipper like ordinary Indians at 5 o'clock in the morning, come to Mysore. You can see hundreds of them. And what do? They learn some half-baked yoga here, go back and start a yoga studio. And suddenly they become part of this $28 billion industry. And back home, in 100 audience, 7 people raise their hands. This is the idea of India we'll have to destroy. So India is not being destroyed by outsiders. We have become so tolerant of a lethargy, that is the intolerance that we have to show. If at all we have to be intolerant to this indifference about the idea of India. Be intolerant to the indifference, to the showing the ideas from India. Those people are imitating us. Today Ayurveda is possibly the only science in this world, and I'm calling it science, which talks about wellness. Let me tell you, till 10 years ago, the entire West, I'm trained as a professional doctor. What am I trained to do? I thrive on your disease. There's no market for me if you don't fall sick. The whole world measures the health industry. It is 16% of the American economy comes from health sector. Which means, if Americans become healthy, 16% of the economy will collapse. And that is what I've been trained in. I've been trained to keep you sick. Right? But look at Ayurveda. Look at a powerful idea that Ayurveda gave. It's the only science which talks of keeping you healthy. And how many of you visit Ayurvedic doctor? Because the West tells us Ayurveda is dangerous. There are a lot of alkaloids and heavy metals. How many of us really even know it worked or not worked? But we form this conclusion. We talk of mindfulness, we talk of pranayama, we talk of dhyana, and we make a joke of it because we don't know what it is. And Harvard Medical School, the head of the Department of Medicine, trained formally in just the Western science, suddenly wakes up to Buddhism and mindfulness and ancient Indian dhyana, and he starts a department called Department of Wellness, and that is the most used department in the Harvard Medical School. What does he teach? Our pranayama, yoga and dhyana. And then we go there paying money to train from him, whereas we don't do it here. Look at this idea, the human capital, capital for the body we thought of, the human capital, intellectual capital for the mind. Our schools, actually our gurukulas promoted human capital. You have to grow your body, you have to grow your mind, you have to grow your heart. No other place can you conceive a word called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, where we gave to the world. We gave love to this world. We never went and conquered any nation. Can you show historical evidence of our aggression anytime in this world? We were never an aggressive nation. But today, we are told to interpret our non-aggression as covered eyes. We are not cowards. We were just not aggressive. There's a distinction between the two. Western psychologists have not been able to figure out the meaning of the simple word Vivekananda reminded us. This powerful word from Rig Vedas and the Upanishads. Abhihi, Abhihi, Abhihi. This concept from India, which only means, loosely translated, closest English word I can think of is fearlessness. It's a very wrong word because I find it very difficult to teach my American students what fearlessness is. Because you can't teach fearlessness. Because the Western psychologists talk of courage. We talk of transcending fear and staying in the plane where you can be absolutely fearless. And today, there's a great amount of research in the West on the science of science of positive psychology, the science of happiness. And now they're disclosing and finding out and saying that state of equilibrium, that state which is so beautifully described in the Gita as Sthita Prajna, is what is a perfect state of happiness. And if they publish, we will teach our students that. That is the tragedy of this country. These are powerful ideas. I can keep going on, I can talk. I have enough to say you to write another book about. But I know my time is limited and Vivek should speak. So, looking at the body, what have we constructed? The ideas of the body, the ideas of the mind, the ideas of the heart. And finally, the only nation in this world which looked at us to go inside. Look at the spirit of inquiry. So, I want to conclude with just giving 8 powerful ideas from India. And if our students are taught these ideas, India will be the greatest country in the world. And I'm saying because I always taught these ideas, and all the 8 ideas are Vedantic values. They are not something which I have conceived. I can't even claim any novelty of research here. All I can claim is I have enough empirical evidence to show it works. And when I did my research, I found a lot of citations for 4 of these ideas. People are so quickly imitated 50% of our ideas already. Only 50% is left for them to validate. And Western world has validated this. Let me give you an example and stop and tell you these 8 ideas. Some 15 years ago, Harvard University woke up. I am an alumni of the university. I know how it operates. It woke up and suddenly they decided to say, so many students join us at the undergraduate level. They do their graduation. They go on to do PhD. So many of us are going through our portals. And they believe they change the world. In fact, the school I studied in, the Kennedy School, the slogan that we have is making the world a better place. I don't know the world definition is the real world or American world, but they call it making the world a better place. And this university actually believes it's making the world a better place because every president, prime minister, all of these people come. My classmates themselves are prime ministers in 3-4 countries now. And they come from there. And so they did a study and said, how many Harvard students are changing this world? Let's study. How many PhDs who graduated the PhD from Harvard University actually make a correlatable difference in this world? A very simple statistical study. And guess how many students? It's a 400-year-old university. That's the oldest university in present terms. We are actually older, but we don't talk of Takshashila or Nalanda because we don't have anything to talk about today. And the present Takshashila we create, or Nalanda we talk about this man who set it up and ruined it for half the time. We talk about it for the controversy rather than for the good things that Nalanda has done. Look at what they discovered. You know what percentage? Any guess? What percentage of people graduating with a PhD from Harvard make a difference in this world? And remember, Bill Gates never graduated. That's why he made a difference. Mark Zuckerberg never graduated. And he wants to make a difference. That's why he comes with free basics to India. Don't think he's coming to India to make a difference to India. He's coming to India to make a difference to the economic world consideration that he has got. But because both of them didn't complete their degrees in Harvard, they became a success. So only 4% of students who complete their PhDs from Harvard are known to have a correlatable evidence for having contributed something to this world. So suddenly it's very nervous, right? Harvard didn't publish it. Because you tell the world only 4% of my students are successful, nobody will go there. Then Case Western University did a different research. They actually said amongst all the successful people in the world, let's measure their success and find out how many of them actually have qualities which can be related to their success. Very simple thing. And their research brought out 4 qualities. I had already written about it. I had written about 8 qualities and 4 of them overlap. Point I'm trying to make is, India had already offered these ideas thousands of years ago to this world. And those ideas are what kept us the number 1 country for 1600 years. It is not our market economic considerations. It was not our mindless, ruthless economic growth that kept India number 1. We really built human and social capital, and there were enormous economic consequences to that. So if you really want to grow India today, copy those ideas, build on what we have, learn from them, live with them, will grow. And those 8 powerful ideas. The first idea, the idea which we gave the world, was compassion. Compassion is not a Western Christianity coined term. A lot of people think that. Even before Christianity, India thrived on compassion. If you look at the enormous contribution of Buddhism or Jainism or all these religious thoughts that we have, if you look at all the wonderful literature that Indian scriptures can boast about, compassion is a very powerful word. Second thing is faith and hope. Vivekananda said you can have faith in 33 crore gods of Hinduism, but if you have no faith in yourselves, you are useless. That's the greatest atheist, he said. Faith in yourselves. Believe you can make a difference. Every one of you in this room should believe that you are great and you can make a difference. No other scriptural wisdom in this knowledge called every human being unique and great. I think for a long time the education system I grew up in and you are growing up in have told us to believe we are incapable of doing something. We are useless. We can't achieve things. I would like to tell you, you're extraordinary people. Believe in yourselves. Have the faith that you can change this world. And have the hope that the world you actually are changing is actually a great thing to do. And you can change it. The third thing. And such wonderfully spoken about in India. The Rig Veda says, let noble thoughts come to me from all sides. Today's research says, positivism is the greatest thing you can give to another human being. Spirit of positivism. Let's start believing we can. For heaven's sake, if your friends say, oh, we can't, we are Indians, we are poor, we are a dirty country, so many problems, get up and say that we can change it. We have allowed India to be poor. We have allowed India to be dirty, and we, this young generation, are going to change it, and change it positively. That is the spirit of positivism we want. Because every time you think a positive thought, your body is quietly releasing oxytocin hormone. Every time you think a negative thought, your body is producing cortisol. And every additional negative thought you have, you're destroying your body. And this body is too good to be destroyed. The fourth, sense of spirit of inquiry. The only country in the world which said, ask the question, who am I? Why am I born? What am I doing here? Why am I even sitting here? Why am I even talking to you? For some of you, today's attendance might be, I lost my way and I came here. For some of you, you may actually want to be here. Ramana Maharishi, one of the greatest thinkers of India, had a simple question. His entire philosophy distilled into one question. Who am I? If you can ask that question, and if you can understand that you're an extraordinary son or daughter of this great country of ours, this extraordinary civilization of ours, we actually will make the world a better place. If there's any country in the world which can actually make the Americans can claim it, but we can make it. So what we want is not just make in India. What we want is to make India. What we want is to make Indians who will make India, because the world needs it. Not India doesn't need it anymore. The world needs it. If we don't do it, the world will not be a safe place to live. So I've said 4. The other 4 are fearlessness, nirbhayate, mindfulness, constant mind. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra so powerfully describe what mindfulness is. We need to teach children that. Spirit of service. You know, in India, look at the concept of service. We never say, hey, my poor man, take my 5 cents, like Vivekananda said. Our religion and scriptures are the only one which says, consider your privilege that the poor allows you to serve them. They said, we are all instruments to serve. And look at God in man and serve. This extraordinary wisdom comes only from our country. So, and before I conclude, the last is sense of humor. Learn to laugh. We teach our people to laugh now. If you laugh in class, I'm sure your professor was sitting here, they would say, come on, shut up, don't laugh. I remember my professor one day shouting at me and saying, Adhik prasangi, nakabeda, in Kannada. Don't laugh. He called me an indulgent fool for laughing. We need to teach our people to laugh. Not laugh at others, but to learn to laugh with others. Get these 8 qualities. These are 8 powerful ideas from India. And I can promise you, the India of the future will actually be the India of the past. And that is the India that we can offer to the rest of the world. India is not going to give this. We have extraordinary science. You can read up, you go Google up all the facts of India, you will get astronomy, algebra, trigonometry. I'm not going to waste my time on that. I want to talk to you about things you will not hear or not get it on Google. Because Google has become a bigger teacher now. Like Google will tell you more about India than I can. So I want to hold back and just tell you something which are real powerful ideas from India. Take it, use it, try it out. And if you think it does not work, throw it out. But if it works, give it to the rest of the world because they need it as much as us. Thank you so much.